The worm family was highly skinny and squiggly and long. There were many of them: Mother, Father, Albert, Evangeline, Blanche, Tiny Rosa, and Uncle Herm. Whenever they saw one another, they embraced and exclaimed, "Oh joy, we are worms." One day they came to a little town, so they moved in, all skinny and squiggly and long. The neighbors were bulgy and squat and green as leaves. "Worm, worm, worm," they cried, most unpleasantly. "Yes, indeed," the worms replied, utterly pleased to be. But the neighbors yelled, and they threw things like bells, old toothbrushes, mush. Gosh, the worm family didn't like that song. "We're moving on," said Father. "To a worm is a glorious thing." So off they plunged in their skinny car, and they sang a wonderful worm song. "We are worms, and we are proud. We are long, and we are loud." Everyone has moved at some point in their life. Whether it be houses, jobs, schools, etc., we all know how scary it can be to move to a new place. You have to make new friends, and that can take a lot of time and effort to find a place where you belong. As someone who has moved schools 6 times, I understand the struggle very, very well. Which is why, when I was younger, I asked my grandmother to read me this story every night, to prove that I too, no matter how long it took, could find a place where I belong, just like The Worm Family by Johnston. The worm family came to a town, so they parked and they squirmed and they wormed around. Whenever they saw one another, they rollicked and exclaimed, "Oh joy, we are worms." But the neighbors were glossy and bossy and striped like mints. They looked at the worms and winced. "Worm, worm, worm," they shouted. "We're worms for sure," the worms rejoiced. "Who needs more?" But the neighbors yelled, and they threw things, a whole list. Then they clenched their fists. "Oh, what a sting!" The worm family collapsed, limp as a string. But Mother said, "Show your spines." "We don't have spines," said Evangeline. "Never mind," said Mother. "Pretend." So the worm family stood tall as dinky trees, every wriggly one. But so, even Father said, "We're moving on. To a worm is a glorious thing." So off they plunged in their skinny car, and they sang a splendid worm song. "We are worms, and we are proud. We are long, and we are loud." Well, the worm family came to a charming spot, so they parked, and they joked, and they giggled a lot, and they went about wormy things. Whenever they saw one another, they rollicked and exclaimed, "Oh joy, we are worms." But the neighbors were thick and speckled like eggs. When they took off their spectacles, they looked stunned. "Worm, worm, worm," they blustered, all flustered. Well, the worm family felt glum. Some flumped and slumped to the ground. But Mother said, "Stick out your chins." "We don't have chins," said Blanche. "Never mind," said Mother. "Pretend." So the worm family stuck out their chins. Every last one. Even so, Father said, "We're moving on. To a worm is a glorious stab." "The worm stops here," boomed Uncle Herm. Uncle Herm stood firm. "We will show the world the glory of the worm." So the worm family settled down. They sipped coffee downtown. They went to museums, and they regaled each other with thrilling poems. And all the while, they tipped their chins to the sun. One day, new neighbors came pounding at the door. They were highly fuzzy and wuzzy and frizzy from the tops of their heads to the tips of their toes. The worm family froze. They were distressed and distraught and altogether discomposed. But they reminded themselves, spines, chins, and before the neighbors could fling one thing, they belted out a wild worm song. "We are worms, and we are proud. We are long, and we are loud." "We noticed that," said the new neighbors. "An utterly glorious thing. Welcome." And then they thrust sweet bouquets upon them, one for every worm. "Huzzah! Huzzah! Huzzah!" the worm family rejoiced. "You all are quite glorious too," peeped tiny Rosa, in a voice like a tiny rose. In a different way, said Albert. Isn't that great? And then they all proceeded to jubilate. Thank you.